Welcome to a new Harry's garage, and I think this one's going to be a bit special because we're off on a bit of an adventure. I've always liked doing adventures. You've probably seen the Testarossa to Sahara, sort of a bit of an epic, and that was a couple of years ago, and I've been thinking, what else could I do along that same sort of line? And the last time you saw the Rolls Royce behind me, I just bought it off eBay for £4,000, £4,100, and it wasn't quite right. It was a pretty good buy. I'm really very happy with it, but it had no performance of things. So it's been down to a specialist, and it's all got tweaked up. It's much better now. I'm very lucky to have a local Rolls Royce specialist within 5 miles of DEW car services. They've been right through it, and it came back, and I really rather liked it. It's a bit scruffy on the outside, but it has a good heater. It's extremely comfortable. And I thought, well, this car deserves a big trip. Now, on the bucket list, one of the places I've always wanted to visit is a very long way away. It's the Arctic Circle. Could I take a Rolls Royce Shadow that I've bought off eBay for £4,000 all the way to the Arctic Circle? It's a long way. There's a little bit of trepidation because it's quite a thing to do with a car like this, but I'm quite excited. Anyway, let's have a look at a map and I'll show you what we're going to do. And you know you're on a proper journey where you actually have to get the school atlas out, but here we go. We're in sort of Oxford area here, and the first surprise of going to the Arctic Circle is we're going to Norway. Arctic Circle here is the dotted line there, is just how far it is. If we were going from our house to Moscow here, 1,960 miles to do that, but going to the Arctic Circle, put that into Google Maps, up to Tromsø we're going, right up the top there, 2,243 miles, so 300 miles further than Moscow. What we're actually going to do is take a little bit off. First leg of the journey, we're going to Copenhagen and then get an overnight ferry into Oslo. And that takes about 400 or 500 miles out of it. So all in all, time we get back, this car will have done between 4,000 and 5,000 more miles than it has now. This car hasn't done much apart from taking people to and from their wedding on their wedding day. So that is the equivalent of what it's done in the last 22 years. Big journey, box of spares, perhaps oils, lots of fingers crossed. So all we've got to do now is the last bit of packing, and then we're off. And next time you'll join us, we'll be somewhere on the way to Copenhagen. Filling up time. This car is from an age when you used to get, I don't know if you can just go down there, 100 octane fuel is what this car likes to drink, so old style 5-star. Haven't quite got there. I've asked a local and apparently that's the only diesel pump, all the rest are petrol, and you just got to watch that one, Super E10, that's the one with ethanol. You do not put that into older cars because it destroys all the rubber lines, hoses, etc. any felt. So I'm using super unleaded in this car at all times. Hang the cost. Right, I might be here some time. It seems to do about 250 miles on a tank. And because I was cruising along at 70, 75 miles an hour, I thought, I'll get loads of MPG. I've got it up to 15. So 13 seems to be about right running around, but 15.2 is my best so far. So yeah, I'm doing this quite often. We had a bit of a surprise last night. I can't get over how well it did the way across. We've done 730 miles now. Did 560 miles in a day yesterday, and it was fantastic. It just sailed along the autobahn. I thought it was all going very well, and checked the oil before we left. It's just a little bit below max. Got to the hotel last night and just did some visual checks, water fine, checked the oil, and it was way down below minimum. We'd used a stack of oil and I kicked myself for not checking it. It's something you have to do with older cars. They do often drink oil at this sort of age, and I've been advised that I should really do the valve guides on this car. The seals, they had an old sort of rope seal, early Rolls Royces like this. It's still the original, all the engine hasn't been touched. I know the compressions are really good, so I knew the rings, piston rings are all right, but the oil seals need doing. And it was a wake-up lesson last night. It was a bit of a heart failure when I saw how much oil we've used. Anyway, what are we up to? 87 euros, 60 litres. This is for 250 odd miles, this fill-up. What else happened? 5 countries we did last night. And I had a suspicion something was going on. I didn't see that we were using oil during the day, but just at night, just as we were coming in here, I could just see a sort of puff of smoke, well known to other classic car owners. Oh, there we go. In other people's headlights. It's sort of the giveaway, and that's why I checked it in the garage. That's not too bad, actually, he says. At 113 euros, 78 litres. I'll have to work out what 78 litres is. Okay, that fill up was 14.5 to the gallon, so not quite as good, but we did hoof it a bit in Germany. I wanted to see if I'd get 100 miles an hour up on the speedo, but actually, long story short, this is a replacement speedo, because just before we left, the speedo cable snapped on this car. So we got ordered up a new speedo cable, put that in, and that one snapped, and it turned out the original speedo head had seized, and that's what had snapped the cable. So I've got a replacement speedo while that one gets replaced, and it's a faulty one. It doesn't really show the speeds correctly, but it does count the miles, and I couldn't do this journey without having the miles being counted up. Right, what we've done, if we look at a map, you want to just come into this. So yesterday we stayed in Folkestone, we came from Calais, and then you have to basically drive through this knot of motorway routes through Holland, Belgium, and then Germany. And we came out Hamburg, and then we actually stayed last night. We're in Lübeck at the moment. There's 2 choices. We're going to go to Copenhagen. Where are we? Copenhagen here. And you can either go from where we are, there's 2 routes. You go all motorway, it's a bit further, and you go around like this to Copenhagen. Or you can go this way and just catch a little ferry. They run every half an hour down here, Putensgarden, sorry. We go, and then motorway in, because we've got 2 ferries to do today. We're doing this ferry up to Copenhagen, and then in Copenhagen we catch this ferry overnight. We've got to be there for 3:30, and then we're off to Norway. So that's what we're doing today. You'll join us somewhere en route, probably on a ferry. Arrived in Copenhagen. We are 4 miles short of 900 miles since we left home, just over a day and a bit ago. It's not quite 2 days. We have the ferry, it's behind me. It's going to take us to Oslo, overnight to Oslo. And actually I booked Commodore class. It sounds rather posh. It's not really, just got a decent cabin for the night. But when we came in, what was quite fun is we follow a blue line, and there we are. The Rolls Royce is first in the queue for Commodore class for the trip overnight, which seems very appropriate, I think, for a Rolls Royce. I didn't actually go into detail what I've done. I bought this car, as I say, eBay for in November, and then what work I've done to get it to this sort of condition. You wouldn't just go and pay £4,000 for Rolls Royce and expect to drive straight off to Norway, the Arctic Circle, hopefully. So I did get Danny and the gang to go through it, this local Rolls Royce specialist near to me. And the things that were problematic, when I picked it up, it had very iffy brakes, and it also had no particular performance, like none. It sort of just drifted up to about 60, 70 miles an hour and all ran okay. What we discovered was, yes, it had all brand new brakes everywhere, 6 calipers all around, all new brake pipes. But someone who put the brakes here didn't really understand the plumbing, and all the brakes were pushing on one side of the caliper rather than a caliper squeezing like this. So Danny and his gang sorted out all the brake pipes, made them work. And then the fuel, why it didn't have performance, turned out the carburetors were completely full of rubbish, just completely full. One carburetor wasn't working at all, and the other one was sort of half working. And then we went back, all the filters weren't good. And then I went to fill it up with fuel, and the boot stunk of petrol, and turned out that basically the petrol tank was porous and it was full of rust, and that's what had blocked everything up. So it was a new tank. I put a new tank in. I then replaced petrol pipes all the way through as well, as a precaution, and suddenly we have loads of performance, and it actually goes really well. Really surprising performance, actually. I mean, it hasn't missed a beat coming up here, apart from this oil consumption I can have a look at. The other thing I did, excuse the lorry just going past, the other things we did was leaking power steering hose. Gosh, what else have we done? Brake pipes, coolant, check the coolant for this trip. Sensor, put a new sensor on that. Oil pressure switch. Wiring was a bit wobbly, they'd wired it in wrong, so I didn't have a petrol gauge, and something else sorted that out. All in all, I spent about £2,500 on bits and bobs. A bit more than I really wanted to spend, but then with a trip like this it seemed a sensible thing to do. And the final bit we added is in the wheel. We have put full-on snow tyres on this car, as you'd imagine for where we're going. I think it's about -10 in Oslo when we arrive tomorrow, and we're going pretty extreme conditions. So, surprise, trying to get snow tyres for a Rolls Royce in the UK was tricky. I had a set of Bridgestone Blizzards, they're called, sent in from Germany. They're commercial grade, but they've actually seem to work really well. So it's on proper snow tyres. We're in Copenhagen now. Tomorrow morning we'll be in Oslo, and the real adventure begins. So next time you see me, that's where we'll be. See you later. Morning. Well, we've just disembarked off the ferry in Oslo. Wonderful ferry, I have to say, overnight, very gentle. You would not know you're on a ferry. No movement, utterly still, no vibration for the engines. Really impressive. And we woke up to Oslo, and it was cold all the way in. There was nothing but snow to be seen out the cabin windows. And as we came into Oslo port, you could see the ice. It was like just this film of ice as we were breaking it as you came into the actual dock. And then down to the cars, out you go. And I'm really impressed with this thing, because it's about, one nice thing, it's about -5, -6 outside. You start the car up, you're in a queue, customs, slight amazement of what car we've got, we brought in. And as soon as you're out of there, you're into a network of tunnels underneath Oslo, and then you're out. And unfortunately, there's no sat-nav because you're all these tunnels. I mean, oh my lord, it is not a place to break down. This thing just carries on regardless. So with the plan now, just going to call in Oslo Airport. Got a Justin Layton, photographer. He's coming to join us on the journey. And all looks good. We'll fuel up, and it really is going to be snowy now. Now is the time where it gets properly cold. I don't know what sort of temperatures we're going to see, but I'm really looking forward today, especially where our end point, where we're staying tonight, is hell. There you are, hell was frozen over. That's where we're going to stay tonight. See you later on. Yeah, my wife thinks this is very funny because I've just checked the oil, and I have trapped my jacket in the bonnet. And it has a funny place where it hides the bonnet, how to open the bonnet lever. Now I'm now hoping I can talk Patricia into, please open the bonnet. I think it's because it's a button, isn't it? How ridiculous. Honestly. There. Easy. Well, we're just gone through Lillehammer, and we, drumroll, done 1,050 miles since leaving home. Quite amazing. We're on the E6, which is the main road in Norway. It goes all the way up to the top.
Think of Norway as a bit like a guitar, and you've got the fat bit at the bottom, then you've got the neck, and then a little bit at the top. It's a very long country. The E6 goes all the way up to the top. But while we're sort of floating along, it's like an economy run, I have to say, in Norway. They don't do speeding. It's 80 kilometres an hour, some bits are 70, sometimes you see a 90. Very slow, all in procession. And if you're also wondering, well, if you're going to drive to the Arctic Circle, why on earth are you doing it in February? Well, as I say, it's on the bucket list, but the other thing on the bucket list is to see the Northern Lights. And we're at peak season for Northern Lights at the moment. If you go right to the top, it comes out of darkness about the 12th of February, and then goes complete daylight from about the 22nd of April. So you've got this window, and end of February, beginning of March is peak season for Northern Lights. So that's why we're going up to the Arctic Circle this time. And I can't get over how the car's behaved, although just in the last 50 miles it's got a slight misfire from looks like a stumble, which is a bit of a pain. But I filled up with some potentially dodgy fuel. It was the first time I put 95 unleaded in it. It was Stat oil, I think it was called. So I'm going to stop and fill up with some 98 as soon as I can. And we've got another, to get to hell, we've got about another 180 miles to do today, and it's 2:30. So yeah, a bit of a way to go, and I really don't want the engine to start to stumble now, because it's been just perfect the way it's been running, apart from the oil. Well, the oil sort of calmed down as well, but it's very scenic. Lillehammer, I can see all the ski runs now, so we're definitely a different scenery outside than it was just a day ago. Anyway, see you later. Just pulling over because the bit of super unleaded didn't do the trick, unfortunately, and I've spoken to my man, and he thinks I've got to check the points, because new points have a habit of closing up. So we're just going to do a little inspection on the engine, which I don't really want to do. We're in a national park, so it's all very pretty outside, but I really don't want to.
Turn left, and then turn right.
A very bossy lady on the on the sat nav. There we are, on Waze. Right, bonnet up time. Oh, you're filming? Yeah, I'm just trying. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I want to check the points. I need to get the heel of the points onto a lobe, and then I know if there's a gap there. So that's, if I just do that, there we are. Well, I'm pleased to report that there's two sets of points on these cars, and one has closed up. So I'm just bringing that away and do it up. Hopefully we still got a gap. There we got a gap. Yeah, we have a gap there. Right. Good. Back together time. I'm not really dressed for this. This is just over the tops now. Not sure exactly what altitude we are, but the roads have changed here. Here you've got this packed ice, and you're never quite sure how much you're going to come across as you go around the next bend, and then suddenly, yeah, you're faced with this ice, pure ice, no grip, and the sort of cart tracks in between the ice. Not friendly. Definitely keeps your concentration, like here. And it's getting dark, which I don't really want to be out here in the dark. Still, we're going to the Arctic Circle, so I think we should expect this sort of conditions, but it's just a bit of an eye-opening when you see it for the first time. And I'm sure, yeah, a 1972-ton Rolls Royce isn't the perfect tool for this job, but so far it's been supremely comfortable, and I'm very pleased to say the little adjustment on the points is making it run. It's running absolutely beautifully again, which is good news.
That doesn't look very good. Well, morning. We're in hell, and yeah, didn't really want to start this morning. I'm not sure what's up. I'm just going to check on the engine, see if it's those points again. We did the points last night, and it worked a treat. But maybe they've closed up again on the way there, and it sounds like it's only firing one bank of cylinders. So I'm going to pop the engine and have a look. I found out what the problem is. It's basically the choke is set for UK temperatures, -6 here, and the choke is so fully on it can't run. So I've taken the choke off, and we have a perfectly healthy Rolls engine. Yeah, another little quirk of this trip, I can imagine. We're going where we're heading is about -15, so I need to get this adjusted. I'm just going to let the engine warm up in the car park. Waiting room. You recording? Oh, right. Right, well, I'm gonna... You can't just do it. We've just discovered that I've got the maps out because I want to show you where we've been. And I have two maps, one from '97 and one a brand new map. And we've noticed the Arctic Circle has moved north. So the target, fortunately the modern map that we are going to refer to as the main map, the Arctic Circle is slightly closer to where we are now than the old map, which seems to be a bit further up the hill. But come down here and I'll show you what we've done. Yesterday we got to Oslo, that was on the ferry, and then we went right across Lillehammer, across the middle of Norway, close to Trondheim, but we discovered a little place on the map called Hell, and we felt we had to visit Hell, because that's not often a place you can visit in your lifetime. And we've come out here, and there's even a Hell station, and we've dropped by there. The guys very kindly let us do some filming outside Hell station, with the waiting room over there as well, which we thought we might find some mates in, but it's empty. Today we're going to go from Hell up to the Arctic Circle, just outside, because we want to get there in daylight. So Mo I Randa, I'm sorry if to all Norwegians if I'm not pronouncing it properly, but that's where we're heading. And then the only thing we're a bit concerned about today is the temperature is due to go down to between, well, one forecast says -15 and one says -20, and after that starting performance this morning with the car, it's got too much choke on it basically. I think it's set for nice country, UK country sort of temperatures. It's not quite used to Arctic temperatures. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjustment on there, because I think we used about 5 litres of fuel starting this morning, but now it's running beautifully, and then we have to head up. We are 329 miles from where we think the Arctic Circle is, so we're going to do about 300 miles today and be very close to it. There is snow forecast as well, just to make life a little bit more interesting. So it's really starting to get pretty tough on the poor old girl now. This car, 48 years old, so we should take more care of it, but we'll be gently drifting up the coastline, and you'll see us later. Well, heading up, and it's starting to get a bit more ominous. You can see outside, if you just swing round, you can see how the sort of weather's starting to close in a bit. It's down, it's -10 or thereabouts outside, and what's happening is you get pure ice in the road. You've got these cart tracks to follow, and the temptation is, you know, to absolutely lock on, and then there's a big truck taking no prisoners coming the other way. Then you notice some of the cars are actually running on the ice,
and it's because they've got studs, so they aim at this, the ice. But when it's just getting like this, when you're not quite sure if there's pure tarmac or whether it's ice, it's butter clenching, shall we say. And we're rocking along at about 50, well, between 80 and 90 kilometres an hour, so 50, 60 miles an hour. Yes, we're definitely closing in on the Arctic Circle. Yeah, I've now lost my cart track of good tarmac, and it's just ice all the way across. It sort of feels like you're on a toboggan run, sort of coming down. You just got to just keep the momentum going and hope nothing's going to pull out or something in front of you as a surprise round the corner. Locals don't seem to mind, and I can't get over, I haven't yet seen a local car with any bashes on it or scratches or anything in the barriers, so they just rock around, and this is perfectly normal, I suppose. It's our coffee stop. Magic moment in the car's history about to happen. I'm looking at the mileometer, and all the 9s are up. It's just about to hook up the 100,000 mile time in its history. 48 years old, remember, and we got it at about 97.3, so we've done 2,700 miles in it since owning it. But if you look outside, what a moment to do it, because it's according to my thermometer on the mirror, well, it's on the last blob, it's on the last blob on the temperature indicator on outside, and that's minus 15. The road now, that idea of sort of cart tracks with a bit of tarmac showing, that's history. Everything is now ice. There's this snow blowing around as well, so you can't see where the road is. What a moment! There it goes. It's just clocked up. All the noughts have just come up. Wow! What is going on here? Yeah, what a moment to do it. We're about 160, 170 miles from the Arctic Circle, is my guess. It feels very definitely more Arctic than this time yesterday. Just the subtle changes. There's a harshness now to outside, and yeah, getting quite excited to be able to say this car's going to get to the Arctic Circle. Fingers crossed tomorrow, but don't want it to get any tougher really. This is just about my limit. It should be easy, but the gauge is frozen on the pump, so I'm having to do it with this. What I hadn't realised is the tyre pressures will go down. They're perfect in the UK, but you get out here and it's minus 15, and therefore the air in the tyre is that much colder, and therefore the pressures go right down, so you have to blow the tyres back up. Live and learn. Rolls Royce Shadow up to the Arctic Circle. Look at that. Welcome to a very chilly Norway. We are now 80 kilometres away from the Arctic Circle, so 50 miles. What a day yesterday was, coming up from hell, the journey from hell, as you might say. The weather really closed in. Surprise, surprise, we're this far north, but there was a lot of snow and it blew, blizzards, and it was drifting across the road. The standard of Norwegian driving is off the scale though. They just charge on regardless, and also the amount of snow ploughs that are out constantly clearing the one road. And it was going through the pain barrier. It wasn't particularly pleasant. I'm amazed at this car, how it's coping though.
This morning, photographer Justin got up a bit earlier than me. He said it was just touching -20. It's about -15 at the moment out here. And yet the car soldiers on. I have to manually start it now. I have to use control the choke. It just over chokes, but if I just get under the bonnet and lift the choke up as it's starting up, it starts fine. Oil's fine. She used a little bit of water. I've just opened up the points a little bit more as well. But we're so close to the goal of hitting the Arctic Circle. I'll just show you on the map where we are. So Hell was right down near Trollheim, down here. Can you see that? Yeah, just there. And then we came up this E6, this one main road in Norway. Norway's only that wide. The rest of it, that's all Sweden. Norway's this wide. And this is where we stayed last night. Mo i Rana. Really nice Scandic hotel in Mo i Rana. Great restaurant, etc. Wasn't great in Hell, but here was terrific, we thought. And today, the Arctic Circle, as I say, is just here. But this is a climb up into the mountains, we're told. And we're just then going to decide how far we go. We might go to Bodo. We were planning on going right up to Tromsø, but it's a long way, and in the road conditions that we experienced yesterday, that might be just a step too far, because of course you have to turn around and come straight back, and that's about 380 miles away, so it's another 700 miles we'll have to do in these sort of Arctic conditions, but at least it's bright today. Anyway, next stop is the Arctic Circle, and I can't wait. Amazing, after what 2-3 days of driving up here, get an icy road like this, and it's whatever. And when I first saw them, they spooked you completely, but you just drift down. There's no other traffic, so there's no sharp braking or anything, and you just carry the momentum and just watch it on the corners and things. But I thought this is going to be really tough up to the final bit, because we're up in the wilds, as you can see outside. But so far, reasonably easy, and we're just 20 miles now to go until we get to the Arctic Circle. If you want to look out the front, this is what we're faced with. And then every now and then it just opens up a bit more, but this sort of road, yeah, I can live with this. My temperature gauge on the mirror is off the scale, so it's -15ish outside. Looks picture perfect, but we're that far north. That's proper cold. Very pleased that the ice road truckers seem to have gone home. It's a Sunday today. The roads are really quiet. We're getting mighty close now. We've come out the valley, trees have gone, and we've got this open vista. Can't believe 2 miles or thereabouts to go. And it's been an amazing journey. How many miles have we done? About 1,680 miles to get to the Arctic Circle or thereabout. Call it 1,700 miles since we set off from home. Just some of the bits about the car I can't get over. That this car is 48 years old, and yet it feels absolutely like a Rolls Royce. There is a distinctive feel to a Rolls Royce, and the way it goes down the road, it seems to have this bottomless, there's no bump stops, it just absorbs all undulations. So those huge springs, and it's unique to Rolls Royce, the wafting feel. When the speedo was broken, I just couldn't tell what speed we were doing. It was next to impossible, because you've got no reference. You've got this silence, and I can't get over how, we took that Rolls Royce Wraith over to Villa d'Este in the summer, and there is the same sort of feel. You have the narrow windscreen, you have the spirit of ecstasy right at the end of the bonnet, leading the charge to where you're going, and it's just wonderful experience. So it might be a $4,000 Rolls Royce off eBay, but it's very definitely a Rolls Royce. And in the way it's just got us here, and there have been little niggles
but they've been easily fixable. You know, the points closing up, well, that's just sort of wear and tear. It's a 2-minute job just to bring them out again. The oil consumption, that was a bit weird, but it's calmed down now. Actually, you ought to just look out, because we're getting mighty close to the Arctic Circle now. Sort of what you wanted it to look like. This open, barren vista, just the snow blowing across the road. I think that is the Arctic Circle. And there it is. Wow, I didn't know it was that close. Right, this is where it really starts to get interesting. You won't be surprised to hear that the Arctic Circle, I believe, is closed, because they don't expect many tourists in middle of February. But there's a few cars here though. Let's go and see what happens up here. Turn right. How close? Is that it? Is that as close as we can go? Oh, Ray. Is that the end of the road?
In 0.1 miles, keep right.
Oh, I thought you could park next to it.
Where we are, Arctic Circle. It's taken us about 3-4 days to get here. 7 countries we've driven across, 8 if you count going into Swedish water in the ferry, which doesn't really count. And this is my badge to prove that I've got this Rolls Royce to the Arctic Circle. How mad's that? Anyway, I'm going to put it. I think it's definitely earned this badge. I'm staggered at how well this car's run all the way up here. Yes, it had the little problems and things, but there we are. That proves this car has been to the Arctic Circle. This is going to be the end of part 1 of this video, taking a Rolls Royce to the Arctic. And next, we're just going to explore this area. So if you want to watch part 2, we're going to chase down the Northern Lights. That's the next thing on the bucket list on this trip to the Arctic. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, keep watching, keep subscribing. More coming along very soon. I'm going to warm up.